Maintaining productivity in a very large engineering team is a serious problem. When you have dozens and hundreds of employees, you inevitably have a lot of people problems. Today on Product Driven, we're talking to Gleb from HackerPulse about his product and what they do to help engineering teams identify these people and performance problems when they have a lot of teams to keep tabs on. To survive and thrive, you must adopt a product-driven mindset. And we're back for another episode of Product Driven. This is your host, Matt Watson. Today, excited to be joined by Gleb Braverman. He's the founder and CEO of HackerPulse, which is a company that allows you to look at all the data about your development team and kind of figure out what they're doing or not doing, the performance of the team. And today, hoping to get some insights from Gleb on what he sees, why teams aren't performing very well. So, Gleb, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Very excited to be here, and thanks for having me. And would love to kind of tell you everything about HackerPulse and how we think about things.
Well, one of the things we talked about before we started recording is once a team gets to 5, 6, 7 people, as you mentioned, like it's hard to get everybody in a room. Teams start to have a lot of problems. Is that how what your guys' research kind of backs up? What team gets to about that big, all of a sudden they have a different set of challenges?
Yes, certainly. So, what we found out is like once your full engineering team gets more than like 70, 75 people, which means that usually teams are size of 4 to 7, engineer leaders have started having difficulties into understanding what their engineering teams are doing. And it's understandable because once you like the more people you have, the more things you have on your plate. So it's just more difficult to keep track of things.
Well, is it a problem for the individual team that is, say, 6 or 7 people, or is it really not an issue until you have a whole organization of 70? Or are they both
So,
problems?
yeah, I get it. So, the visibility problem comes from the above. So, like our software helps engineering directors, VPs of engineering, CTOs to understand the visibility across the whole org. But depending on how your teams are working, this may start to occur on the level of a team as well.
Okay. So when you talk to you, and you've said you've met with like hundreds of engineering leaders about these problems and what you guys are trying to help them solve. So when you're talking to these companies that have, close to 100 plus developers, what are the problems that they typically have?
So the problems come from very basic to very complex. Some common themes are people want to have a better understanding of what their engineering teams are working on. So essentially, to answer the question of where engineers are spending their time, do they spend a lot of time on meetings? Do they spend a lot of time in idle states where, for example, you have code review latency that is like more than a day or something like that? So it's quite simple things, but then when you combine them all, they turn out in the more complex things.
So in these companies, do the engineering leadership and or product managers and stuff also not aware of these issues, or is it's just they're too big that it's just really difficult to keep an eye on all of it?
Um, I wouldn't say that people are not aware of these issues. It's more about that current tools that companies are using. It just make it very difficult and time consuming for you to actually go and understand and control every beat and piece of it. Think about it as a very large, complex piece of machinery that you operate, like a Concorde plane when you had like 5 people on the team on the cockpit only to kind of make this moving mass go really fast in the sky. It's more or less the same thing, or like navigating a large ship in the sea. So as soon as you have a big organization, you have managers, managers of managers, they all manage different things, and then every team has different dashboards. Every team is sometimes teams are using different software. So if you're, let's say, even managing 7, 8 teams directly, it's difficult to keep track of everything that is going on.
For sure. I mean, when I've had smaller teams in the past, right, it's easy to go into Jira and look at one team and get an idea of what's going on. But if I've got 10 teams, it's like all of a sudden that's a daunting task, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the same goes for kind of creating new teams. So one of the things we are working on is team assembly, which allows you to spin up teams in seconds instead of like weeks, days. Some stories are people spent over a month on creating teams, and kind of by the way we map the engineers, we allow to create teams very fast.
So for that, you basically create like a profile of all the team members, what their skill sets are, what they like doing, what they don't like doing, all that kind of stuff, and then have the ability to go in and say, I need to find a good React developer, whatever, that already works at the company for this new team or project?
Yeah, so when we onboard a new company, we automatically generate a profile for every single developer, and then we automatically map skills from version control systems, task trackers, and other sort of data
Okay.
sources that we connect. Yeah, and then we are able to sort of run a natural language query, and then we take into account skills, workload, like if the person is busy or not, and if they're going to be available in, let's say, a couple of weeks, and then collaboration history, which is also very important. So if, for example, Gleb and Matt worked previously together and they shipped good product. It didn't create a wave of customer support tickets and stuff like that. Then it probably means that we can potentially make a good team.
So there are a lot of different ways that engineering managers look at this, like Dora metrics and different things like that to help identify how team members are doing. I guess first of all, what do you think of the Dora metrics and what how all of that works? And then second, like how does that compare to like what you guys are doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, no, we're initially when we were building the product and we were thinking about the metrics that we want to show, and we do show some basic level of dashboards because we believe that there is a certain base level that you need to give to engineering leaders. Like we show cycle time, idle time, task in progress, and like open pull requests and active tasks in Jira, and meeting productive and friction time per team, per engineer, and things like that. So those are all available to all of our customers. But uh, the core value of the product is sort of like built on top of that. So like Dora metrics, we believe that they should be used if the company likes using Dora and Space frameworks. We are all there to support them. We don't want to change methodology of the company, how they work. We want to kind of be at the same time go hand in hand with them.
So it's trying to get
And
the signal from that noise, right? It's like how do we interpret this junk that we're getting?
Exactly, and just make it very user friendly. Like we saw different products on the market, and unfortunately, the user experience is coming from Microsoft Outlook times. So it's a lot of dashboards. Onboarding takes occasionally it takes months. Like just yesterday, we talked to a very large company with 1,500 developers who a year ago considered a company in the space to kind of understand engineering productivity, get more insights. And they told us that the reason why they didn't go with them is because the onboarding process took so long that they just like didn't have time to do it. And we aim to do everything was like 2025, so everything quite fast, user friendly, with good user experience. So this is a very important part, which I think was underlooked for a long time. And obviously focus on how teams are organized in the company, how you can create new teams, how can you move people around the teams. So if Dora and Space metrics are on the technical side, we want to also introduce the people side here because a lot
Okay.
of the problems that companies have right now, they're not technical problems. They're people problems, and people problems need a solution as well.
So how do you get that information? Like I understand you can import into your system data from Jira and source control, stuff like that, but how do you identify these people problems?
So people problems are actually a lot simpler than one might think. Like a very common thing that was like two very common things that are ubiquitous across all of the companies we talk to, meaning that like every single company in some way or form highlighted that this is important for them. Are geographical spread. So, for example, if people on your engineering teams, like in which different time zones they are, how many common working hours do they have? Because if you have a person working in, let's say, Brazil and the other person is working in Indonesia, they have just a few hours per day, or even like less than a couple of hours per day of actually common productive work. And you want to just move people around. And we have that real customer case a couple of weeks ago when the company had team members in UK and team members in Texas, and they wanted to move things around because they understood that it's just difficult for people to work. So they decided to uh, create two teams instead of having one team with people in different time
Sure.
zones. Then different seniority levels. So people like, let's say, 3, 4 senior people working on one similar problem in one team. You just want to kind of move them around to make the team more productive. Or a team is staying too junior or too long, which is also a problem. Oversized team. So you created a team that you wanted to be like 5, 6 people. Now it's 15 and you don't know what to do with it. So
But some
those all, yeah.
so some of these things you described though, I feel like you would only know by knowing these employees, working with them, knowing these sort of things, right? So I guess my question is like how did you productize this into your product? So if I sign up and use your product, like how does it help me identify these people, these sort of people issues without me already having to know all these people and like know all these
So
people?
the majority of this information you can get from integrations and understanding of how people are shipping, what is their shipping cadence. Let's say the quality of the work can be seen by things like if you're let's say if you open APR, how many times it's reverted and things like that. So you have like all of those secondary metrics, I would say. If you combine them all, you can actually understand a lot. And basic information like geographical level, job positions, and things like that, you can also get those from integrations like identity management system and things like that.
One of the things you mentioned in our previous conversation is you've interviewed all these companies, and basically all of them think they're unique. They think they all have these very specific problems. But you said after you interviewed, hundreds of these companies, they were almost all exactly the same problems.
Yeah, exactly. And um, we are focusing specifically on people problems because the majority of them do have people problems. So that their um, problems around transparency, like understanding where people are spending their time, and our development teams are moving according to schedule, or some of them are behind the schedule. What can I do with that? Like a very simple problem that is very common across the companies we talk to is how many hours my team is spending on meetings, and is this normal? Like, let's say you have 10, 15 teams, they on average spend, let's say, a couple of hours on meetings per week, which is a perfect condition, which is not real, obviously. But like our goal is to show you the benchmark around your company. And then if you have 10, 15 teams, we want to be able to show you if this is trending upwards, trending downwards, or you have one team that is suddenly spending, instead of spending 2 hours, now it's spending 10 hours per meeting, for meetings per week. It's something's wrong. You need to go and look at it. And right now, it's not readily available on the market. Like you don't just have tools like that at the moment.
So where do you see this going? Where do you guys see your product evolving to, kind of different from like we talked about like Dora and space metrics, which are other kind of industry standards. Where do you see this going?
So right now we are working on a few very exciting features. So everything that is around suboptimal teams, so understanding where your teams might be improved. It may be team composition, it may be delivery schedule, it may be things like that. Then everything around team assembly. So we talk to a lot of large companies, large meaning like 1,000 developers plus, and these guys have significant need for solutions that allow you to create teams from scratch. And apparently nobody looked into it before. Yeah, and this is a very new, exciting journey because it's a sort of like a category defining product where you're able to actually create teams from zero in a few minutes and then understand how those teams are going to perform with your existing number of engineering teams, so how they plug in and things like that. And then last but not least is we're working on a feature that is called Playground. And Playground leverages everything around recent advancements in large language models. So one of the common things, something that you brought up just now, was that like all of the companies think they're unique. And um, a lot of companies who tried dashboard-based tools before, the reason why they didn't stick with the tools is because you can't build a dashboard for every single use case. So what we want to build is we want to give you the opportunity to run natural language queries, so essentially perplexity-like experience, and generate graphs on the fly across all integrations. A common use case for that is, what if you want to understand how your development team is performing against OKRs. Every company has different OKRs or KPIs. In order to understand how, you need to have like a 1,500 different templates for that. We just give you a window where you can write a natural language query saying like how my mobile team is performing against revenue, and then we're going to generate a graph for you on the fly, and then you can stick this graph to the main.
Very cool. Well, so something else you guys mentioned on your website, I think it's an interesting topic I wanted to ask you about is this concept of ghost engineers. And the idea is like 5 to 15% of employees probably show up every day and don't really do a lot of work. Now, somebody did a study about that. I'm sure you can tell me more, but I just want to point out like this is not engineering specific. Like I have people in my family that show up to their job every day that I don't think they actually do any work either. They're not software engineers. But tell me more about this problem of ghost engineers.
Yeah, so initially we came across the concept, I think, in the fall of last year. It's a Stanford research. It was released, I think, November or December, and I'm happy to share all of the materials with the viewers. But we got interested in it, connected with a person who've done the research, learned more about it, and when we started thinking about what would be the message that resonates with the people who we actually want to talk to, so engineering leaders, directors, VPs, and CTOs, by looking at the amount of media impact that the research generated, and TechCrunch covered it, Forbes covered it, a lot, like the research itself got millions of views on Twitter. And we understood that this is something that resonates deeply on the inside. It's like when you know something, but you're not sure if everybody is like talking about it. It's like everything that's going on around American politics right now, which I'm not very familiar with, but I see the waves.
The government is
Mm,
full of ghost employees. We get it.
in a way, yeah, 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 yeah. But yeah, but we thought that we want to take a position that's gonna be true to what we think, and we think that A players want to work with A players,
Yeah.
and we truly believe that um, if your team is not performing well, people who actually do the work, they will want to fix it because it's important for the work, for the culture. And like in our company, we're just 7 people. We are growing, but we are 7 people, and we care about culture a lot. And something that I talk with my co-founders and with everybody on the team almost every day is like we need to care about our customers, prioritize our customers. It's super important. And if you have people who are not pulling the weight, you need to move things around. You need to improve this because it's like business critical.
Well, let's talk about that a little more. You mentioned like how important the customers are, and that's one of the things we talk a lot about on the Product Driven channel here, and in my book, the Product Driven book, about having empathy for users and really being very focused on the product and the outcomes for the users. So, as a small company, do you feel like that is easy to do today? Getting everybody to understand, like, hey, that is priority one is the users.
You mean like inside the company,
Yeah,
among our team members?
yeah.
Um, it's a great question. I think a lot of it comes from how you hire when you're small. Like I can't talk to how it's done when we are big because we are not there yet. It's probably another conversation in a year or something. But right now we hire ourselves, meaning that like we talk to every single person from almost the first interview. And I think when during the hiring process, you need to understand that you need to feel this from the other person. Like, do they care about the company? Do they care about the product? How they think about relationships with customers? And a lot of this comes from what the person was doing before. Like before coming to this interview, before working with HackerPulse, like what was their journey? What's the company they were working on? Was it a startup or like an enterprise, a big enterprise company? And like how they talk about it. What do they program at home is something that I ask on every single interview. Is like, what are you building at home? What are you caring about? And the answers to those questions, they sort of tend to make our lives easier a little bit.
Well, and one of the things I talk a lot about in the book is so much of it is a leadership thing too. It's leadership pushing to the team constantly the importance of understanding the outcomes of their work, the users, understanding the users' problems, and sharing that information with them and getting them that information as well. But at a small company, that's fairly easy to do. At a large company, especially the ones you're talking to, it's a very difficult problem. When you've got 70 engineers, you're like, okay, how do I get all 70 engineers to still think and act this way? That's something that we're very focused on this channel and in my book. So just curious your take. You guys are early on in this. So tell us, as we wrap up the show today, what else should we know about HackerPulse and the problems you guys are trying to solve?
So I think that the most important thing is that a lot of the problems that we find in larger companies are very common, and people should speak about them, I guess, more loudly. We are trying to do a few things around engineering reports and things like that. So we collect a lot of information, and my colleagues right now are working on an engineering, like state of engineering productivity report to understand what tools people are using, how they approach engineering productivity and things like that. And I think that right now, with everything happening in the world, and like with recent AI advancements and the whole notion of like engineering jobs are gonna come to an end, which I strongly disagree with. I feel like it's more important to kind of highlight how different companies, different engineer leaders think about that. We want to, with all of our media efforts, we want to bring this to light, and the way we approach kind of our go-to-market motion as a company is we want to bring out the content engine together with all of the data-driven analytics that we can bring to the table after working with all of the companies we work with.
Yep. Well, awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show today and discussing HackerPulse and some of these common problems that everybody is dealing with. Gleb, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Matt. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Before we wrap up today's episode, we have a special resource for you if you're looking to elevate your development team to have more of a product-driven mindset. I have a fantastic free ebook about turning your code-first team into a product-first team. Please go to fullscaleteam.com/product-first-teams to download this free ebook. There's also a link in the show notes. Thanks for listening to Product Driven, and we'll see you in the next episode.